Welcome back to Joe Stunner Boxing. Excuse the blocked up nose and the voice, but I got caught in the rain last week. I mean, I thought I'd go to Camden before the gig. This was on my birthday last Wednesday, and the heavens opened up, and I got absolutely drenched from head to toe. So I spent the weekend pretty much sleeping all of it. You know, when you get those head colds and you're aching all over, it's bloody horrible. Anyway, enough of that. I want to talk a little bit about this thing called the Kronk style. I think this is the phrase that's always used, the Kronk style of boxing. And I want to ask the question, is there such a thing? Because to be honest with you, I don't think there is. Right. Now, why do I say that? I think when people talk about the Kronk style, what they're actually talking about is the Thomas Hearn style. The low left hand, extremely offensive, big right crosses, hooks that set up the right cross, and even the look, you know, the tall, rangy fighter. But I think if you look at Kronk fighters, very few of them have had similar styles. Now, if you go back to the early days of the Kronk, I mean, the first Kronk champion was Hill McKenty. Jimmy Paul was another one of the early ones. Obviously, Tommy was another one. They didn't really have similar styles. I mean, the low left hand may be. Certainly Milton McCrory used to do that. But again, Milton McCrory stylistically, was he like Tommy Hearns? No, not at all. Was he like Hill McKenty? Not really, no. He hung his left hand low, and my God, he paid for it when he got flattened by Don Curry, blasted out in 2 rounds. But he had trouble. He had a lot of trouble with Colin Jones for 24 rounds, wasn't it? So I'm not convinced that such a thing exists. And it got me thinking, when you get this sort of myth, almost like a sort of legendary phrase, or almost like something with half truth to it, but not really. It's not. It doesn't bear scrutiny. Do you know what I mean? Like, so something you can say, okay, yeah, well, Kronk style, yeah. Thomas Hearns, he was brilliant, wasn't he? Yeah. What years later? What about Lennox Lewis? Did he box like Thomas Hearns? I mean, he was a heavyweight. Or I don't know, Vladimir Klitschko. Was he taught the Kronk style? What about Tyson Fury? I think this is all about offense. People are talking about going forward, looking to land your big punches, looking to set up big punches. But as I said in a previous video, one that I did earlier today, if you look at people like Lewis and certainly Vladimir Klitschko, Emmanuel Stewart taught Klitschko, you know, defense. Defense came first because he recognized that Klitschko had a bad chin. And he had to work on his gas tank as well, which a lot of that energy was sapped out of Klitschko, certainly when Stewart took over, because he had such low confidence and he was nervous in the ring. He'd been knocked flat twice, virtually on the bounce, I think. Certainly lost 2 or 3, or if it wasn't 2 on the bounce. So Stewart had to rebuild him from the floorboards up, and he concentrated on defense, on protecting that fragile chin. So, of course, Stewart was Kronk, wasn't he? He was, you know, he was the founder of it. He was the one that worked with those early champions. And the early champions don't bear any resemblance to each other. Not really, not when you look at them. So I'm not convinced that there is such a thing. And another example of these sort of myths that exist, these sort of semi-truths that become sort of part of the boxing vernacular, but people don't bear any sort of deconstructing. Once you look into it, you're thinking, is that true? Is that really the case, or are we sort of being a little bit romanticized about it? Are we looking back with rose-tinted specs? Are we not really recognizing the reality of the history, or what this concept actually involves? Another example is this Philly shell. Because, as I mentioned in previous videos, I was lucky enough to be on one of Boxing Beats and Rhymes hangouts with Tim Witherspoon. And one of us, it wasn't me, it might have been Beats, asked about the Philly shell. And Witherspoon said, I'd never heard of this thing. I'd heard of the shell, which was, elbows tucked in, hands protecting the jaw, upper body movement to avoid the uppercuts. But the Philly shell? What is that? What is that? Now, Tim, of course, is in his 60s now. He's old school. But you would think he would have heard of it unless it was a recent, a sort of recent, maybe the next step from the shell was the Philly shell. People talk about James Toney using it, Mayweather, of course. But maybe they took these concepts a stage further. And in the case of Mayweather, it was all, elbow protects the side, fist protects the jaw, chin tucked into the shoulder, other hand protected. Maybe they just refined it. Maybe it was the evolution of something that existed before. But as a result of this quote unquote Philly shell now being part of the vernacular and something that all young fighters like to try their hand at, maybe we're starting to believe that it always existed. It didn't. And of course, not every fighter can use that type of defense. Just as not every fighter can use, if we're going to call the Kronk style, the low left hand and the offensive, particularly with the backhand, the offensive attitude, then not every fighter is going to be able to use that. So I don't know about this. I think that a lot of the time we talk about these things without really knowing what they mean. We use these phrases and these concepts and we all assume what they mean. But when someone says, well, what exactly is that? You go, well, I think I know what it is, but I can't really explain it fully. And there are others. I've just given 2 examples there. But what do you think? I mean, is there such a thing as the Kronk style? I don't think there is. And I go back. I don't go back. Actually, I do go back to the start of the Kronk's world champs. Hearns was always one of my favourite fighters because it was kill or be killed. But I don't. Obviously, one style doesn't fit all. That would be a ridiculous thing to assume. But maybe someone rubber stamps their sort of style onto a certain gym or a certain style. Maybe they stamp their style onto it. It becomes theirs. Like, for example, Mayweather with his version of the Philly shell. Tony is another one. He had brilliant defensive skills. But then so did Sweet Pea. And no one said he was using anything called the Philly shell. You go all the way back to Willie Pep, defensive genius. Would you say he was using anything that would now be called a Philly shell? Probably not. I mean, these are bastardizations of phrases and of styles that somehow, for some reason, become ingrained in the sort of mainstream boxing vernacular. And I don't think they really necessarily mean anything, or they don't mean what they think we mean, even if we think we know what they mean. If you see what I mean. But I don't know. Leave your comments below. Tell me what you think. A bit of a rambling one, this, but I just wanted to mention that. Just give me your opinions. And I'll look at your comments and answer them. Have a read of them. Maybe it'll shed some light, because this is a subject that's got me thinking, and I haven't really come up with any comprehensive answers. But let me know what you think. And as always, subscribe to the channel, please. If you're new, subscribe and also hit the like button. I always appreciate your time. I always enjoy reading your comments. And thanks a lot. There'll be more to come. Bye for now.